host of the show, The Velocity Success Stories. Today, we have a great guest, and he is a friend of mine. I've known him for many years. He is the CEO and the founder of Selling Power magazine. And to give him a proper introduction, I need to read a couple of things for you. Number one, he started the magazine, the publishing empire that he has built in 1981, and featured covers included Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Tyra Banks, and Larry King, to name a few. He's interviewed many of the top leaders in all aspects of life, and he wanted to know what made them successful. The reason why Gerhard and I became fast friends is because we all have an affinity to the concept of mindset. And that's what is behind the book that I just wrote that's going to be released on May 11th called The Velocity Mindset, of which we dedicated the first part of the book to the concept of mindset. So will you please help me welcome the CEO and founder of Selling Power magazine, and he also happens to be the CEO and founder of Mindset Science, which is about the peak performance mindset. Please help me welcome Gerhard Gschwandtner. Gerhard, good afternoon. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you for inviting me. This is my first experience with a LinkedIn Live broadcast. And I know you're also going live on YouTube and on Facebook. So we are triple live.
We're triple live. And we got the right person to be here on the triple live, and that's you. You know, I got to tell you a funny story. When I started my business in 1989, my friend, and as a sales speaker and consultant first, they kept saying, you got to get into selling power. You got to get into selling power because that is the de facto standard. And that was my goal. And finally, in 3 years, I got into it. You published me. You actually did a book review of The Titan Principle. It was one of my first books. And then we became fast friends and supported each other for the last few years. So Gerhard, what is behind your interest in the concept of mindset?
I think it's my curiosity. My grandmother was running a country inn, and I was just that little kid watching the adults having conversations around, the state of the world, the state of politics. And I was fascinated by the way people were explaining life to each other. And I think that sort of carried forward when I started interviewing very successful people for Selling Power magazine. I wanted to get an explanation to the question, why is somebody more successful than other people? Why is somebody like Mark Benioff, who created Salesforce.com, and we did a couple of cover stories with him, why has he been able to set a goal? He told me, my goal is to create $1 billion company in 10 years. Why has he done it in 7? Why is somebody like Michael Dell, when I interviewed him, he was 28 years old, he already did $2 billion in sales. What made him think differently and act differently, make better choices and become more successful? Or why has somebody like Mary Kay, who started her company when she was 47, but not by design, but her husband died and she needed to make a living and build an empire for, in an industry that's highly competitive, but she built it on principles and ideas that were very humanistic, that celebrated women, that helped women grow and educate, come into their own, and find fulfillment in that difficult, challenging job.
So you're talking about the concept of starting first, which is to visualize what success looks like. That's what you're talking about, those successful individuals, right? And that's what we cover in the book. Let's talk about you for a second. When you went about and starting Selling Power magazine, what was your vision before it actually got off the ground? What was your goal?
Well, I never had the idea to create a magazine. It was really by default and not by design. I had an audiovisual sales training course called The Languages of Selling, where we taught salespeople how to use nonverbal communication techniques together with professional selling skills. In the process, I created a newspaper that I called Selling Power, and it was my advertising piece, and it had 8 pages of articles and a 2-page ad for the training course. So it was designed as a vehicle to sell the training course. But then I got phone calls from people like 3M and say, can we buy 100 copies? Or Liberty Mutual Insurance, we want to buy 300 copies. And I asked them, why do you want to buy my direct mail piece? And they said, well, there's nothing out there. We want to share this with our salespeople. And there are a lot of really good articles in there on how to improve your selling skills and improve your motivation. And then I thought, wow, there's a demand for that. Maybe I have a second product. So I came up with volume 1, number 2, and said, sent me 95 cents and buy a minimum of 5 copies. And I sold like 4,000 extra copies of my direct mail piece. And then finally it clicked and said, well, why don't we try for subscriptions? So we said, in 81, we come out with 6 issues, sent me $12, get a 1-year subscription to Selling Power. And I said to my wife, I need to set a benchmark. And if I get 500 subscribers on the first go around, I'll continue. If I get less, I refund the money. And I stopped that idea. It's just a test. Within 6 weeks, I had 1,200 paid subscribers. Within a year, I had 7,500, and then 80% or 85% renewed. And within about 8 years, we became the largest sales management publication in the country.
So what was the mindset you had to have, or let's say, what is the mindset you had that allowed
the
you?
mindset was from the get-go, every issue has to pull new subscriptions, every issue has to be profitable, and every issue has to be the best ever. I always was striving for the best combination of articles. I always wanted to have a great cover story with interesting people. So we were on newsstands, we're in the back seat of United Airline magazine, and we measured the success of every issue and learned from every issue. So we put stars from Hollywood or gold medal winners or interesting personalities. And in the process, I got to interview Norman Schwarzkopf or Colin Powell, or I played golf with Bill Clinton. I was invited to a private dinner with George Bush 41, and I felt very privileged to have access to all those people. And it felt like tapping into a supercomputer and sort of extract the ideas that I wanted to share with my audience so that other people could realize that you are the sum total of all the choices that you make in life. And at any moment, you can change making new choices and create a better life for yourself.
So as you started getting into the environment where they actually called you up, they wanted to be with you, these top performers, was there some commonalities in their mindset you've been able to identify of the most successful people you've run into?
Well, I think they all have one thing in common. They want to be the best in what they do, and not necessarily because they're competitive, but because they have a mindset that is functioning at an optimal level. And what does that mean? I break it down into 3 parts. You want to function optimally on a cognitive level, on a psychological level, and also on a physical level. And that is the foundation, to me, of a successful peak performance mindset.
So I heard you doing a podcast the other day, and you were talking about this highly successful CEO. And I've run into many of them myself, where they're driven emotionally by things that happened in their past. In this case, the person was competitive with their siblings or whatever, and they had to succeed. And you made a statement that what you realized is that they were chasing pipe dreams versus becoming aware of what really drives us. And How does that play? Because I mean, after all, if you look at that person, you would probably say the person is very successful. Was there anything missing because they were chasing, pipe dreams versus becoming aware of what really drove them?
Well, I think that we all have a baggage. You have a baggage, I have a baggage, everybody has a baggage, which comes from parenting that was not optimal. Like my father telling me or telling my mom while I was in the room and not visible, I was in the back, and he said, Gerhard will never amount to anything. So that stayed with me for quite some time. However, I realized by talking to people like Dr. Marty Seligman or Dr. Wayne Dyer, or so many psychologists that I interviewed. I wrote a book, The Psychology of Selling, and I realized that we need to let go of the beliefs that don't serve us anymore, that hold us back. And we need to be able to respond to new situations in life with responsibility. And that word has two components: respond with ability, not with disability. And and I don't want to talk about your background because it's in the book, but you have had similar handicaps where you had to let go of certain parts of your past that held you back. And the interesting thing is that that kind of thinking emerges from I call it dichotomous thinking, where you look at the world in black and white. It's either all good or all bad, and the dichotomous thinking is like slicing a salami, and you look at two sides, and there will always be two sides. And what you're really missing is the full dimension of life.
Right.
There's more to black and white. There are shades of gray. And if you want to create a healthy mindset that helps you to function at optimal levels and achieve your goals,
Right.
you need to let go of the self-defeating beliefs of your past.
Right. Now, it doesn't have, I mean, there's some people that are watching right now and saying, well, I had a great childhood. You don't have to have a bad childhood or bad parenting. It could even be a teacher that you wanted to go and apply to sing in a school play, and they said to you, oh, you'll never be a singer. You don't have the voice. We all heard that one thing that came somewhere along the line from someone who meant well by us, but we latched on to it. So when you go back to that individual you were talking about on that podcast who was very successful, but they were chasing pipe dreams, what you're really saying is, even though we're all successful, the question is, how much more could we have done if we didn't allow these anchors to keep weighing us down? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and one way to look at it, and to give you a mental model to think about, picture a pyramid, and at the bottom you have the implanted mindset. What was implanted in you that you experienced through your upbringing, through your parents or caretakers, and imagine this like a garden. That a garden has flowers and fruits and trees, and it has weeds, and your role is to continue to water the flowers and stop watering the weeds. Then the next level in the pyramid is the imprinted mindset. Imprinted meaning that people made an impression on you. You had heroes, you read books, you looked at documentaries, you see YouTube videos, and you say, I want to be like that person. I want to be financially as well off as Warren Buffett, or I want to be as confident as Tony Robbins, or I want to be as benevolent as Mother Teresa, so or as wise as Socrates. So the imprinted mindset is something that you can, develop by having good teachers, by getting exposure to mentors, and by reading and studying successful people. And then there's a third level. The top of the pyramid is the inspired mindset. That is your inner voice. This is the true self. And I remember interviewing Mary Kay, and she said, everybody's born with an instrument, and you need to learn what it is, and then you need to learn how to play it. And so many people die with their music still unplayed. And it's your responsibility to clean out the basement of that mindset, the implanted mindset, let go of the self-limiting beliefs, expand the imprinted mindset, and hang out with people that really help you grow, that discover the best qualities in you. But always listen to your inner voice and be true to yourself and be that authentic human being that you were designed to be.
So you're putting a lot into that short answer, and it was a very powerful answer. So when we define velocity in the book, it's speed with direction. And many times we either don't have the direction or the end in sight perfectly clear in our minds to know what we're going to do. And in other times we may have that, but it may not be strong enough to make sure that our actions support it, because many times we get diverted into tasks that don't really mean any much towards the purpose. And when you were talking about the music that was left unplayed at the end of our lives, when I had my back surgeries, that's exactly where the velocity mindset came, because it gave me a time to pause, which we talk about in the book, and think about what I've accomplished, what I wish I still accomplished. And I realized how I was held back by certain fears and so forth. So you talked about mentors. Mentors, I mean, the best of the best have mentors and coaches. Michael Jordan had a coach. Jack Welch had a mentor and a coach. Talk to me about the role of the mentors and the power that it brings to one's velocity and achieving their goals in life.
Well, all I have to say, Ron, is you and I had many conversations about the way we see life, the way we look at our past, the way we look at our potential, the way we develop ourselves. And essentially, two heads are better than one. I've had many conversations with people where I felt they have a book in them, and I recognize that because I'm a publisher, and I've helped many people develop their ideas for a book, and I call those conversations developmental conversations, where we co-create ideas that all of a sudden have a direction and lead to action and lead to success, and they'll lead to a transformation of people's lives. Because I think that the conversations that you and I had over the years helped me grow, because I was grateful that you were very authentic and very open. We just did an interview series with you with 5 videos, and I'm looking back and I thought, wow, what an extraordinary individual that Ron Karr is. The more I listen to him and the more we talk, the more I learn, and I think that our true dimension comes only out if we have good conversations.
I totally agree with you. And I enjoy those conversations too. And I'm a better person for the conversations we have had. But you use a mentor doesn't have to be one person for your whole life. It could be different people for different things. I remember when I called you up because I had this unexpected emergency surgery in October. It was a big surgery. And you started playing the role of the mentor. You started saying, okay, are you focused on the surgery, or are you focused on the results after the surgery? And you helped me, get beyond, the potentialities of what could happen and focus on the success and what I needed to have in place for that to happen. And it was a great diversion for me, but it helped me get into the right mindset. So that's really the effect of a mentor. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely, because we are locked into our thinking patterns, and we don't recognize those thinking patterns. I give you an analogy. When you play chess, you learn in the beginning, you learn the basic moves, and there's a starting game, a middle game, and an end game. But when you become, and there's an ELO rating. The higher the number, the better you are, and the grandmasters are in the like 2500s. The average player is maybe 600 or 800. And I remember when I went from 800 to 12 and 1300, I realized that I looked at the chessboard differently, and I saw more possibilities. I saw more moves ahead. I saw more strategies coming towards me that I needed to respond and cut off the strategy so I would not lose. So it's the same thing with the mindset, where some people play in life constantly at a 600 or an 800 level. And we have the capacity to play at a 1200, 1500 level. Where I just beat a computer last week with a 1700 rating. I've never done it before, but I lost like 20 times before that, before I could break through. And I think it's so important to realize that we all can play at a higher level if we invest the time in preparing our mindset for that.
To get to the higher level, one of the things we talk about in the book is the concept of, especially when something doesn't go wrong, right, the way you want it, or you don't get to the level you want, instead of blaming the game on the computer or blaming something else, we start with the central question: what could I have done differently? Was that a central question you kept asking yourself before you played that next game, and then the next game to get to a higher level?
I think my battle was different. I got upset when I was losing, and then I thought, why am I getting upset? It's just a game. And then I thought, well, that's not the right way to think about it. The right way to think about it is to find out at what point in the progression of the game you have a self-talk that is self-defeating, because with every move, you have an opportunity to move forward strategically and be on the offense or play the defense. And whenever something dangerous came, I played the defense, and I realized that I can make a counter move. There's another option. So always make the move that you didn't think of first. Think deeper, think further. And, life is complicated, and we need to have help from other people. We can't do it alone, and we need to be humble and realize that we can't know it all. There's no way. There's no super genius that has an answer to everything. So as long as you are hungry and humble, you're on the right path.
So when you ask yourself that question, why am I getting so upset? That was a fundamental pivot for you at that moment. But
yeah, and I also realized that was my father's voice. I'll never amount to anything. I'm never going to be good at chess.
Right.
And I wanted to expose myself to failure, and that feeling where I felt I'm hitting a wall and I'm not dumb and I can figure this out.
Right. But going back to that feeling, every feeling we have is emotionally charged, either positive or negative, right?
Right.
And so the first thing you did was, by asking yourself that question, why am I getting upset? That was like a pivot for you to recognize that you're in your own cortisol bath of negative emotion. And when you allowed yourself to get clear of that, then you are open to the new ideas of what you could do differently. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
as Tony Robbins says, you want to ask yourself different questions so you get different answers.
Right.
And people keep asking the wrong questions.
So we got about 5 minutes left. So we'll get to some short questions and answers. All the people you interviewed, right? Is it a fair assumption to say they all had their own fears?
Everybody. I remember interviewing Keith Crack, the former chairman of DocuSign, and former CEO of DocuSign, he served as Undersecretary of State. And I have 4 interviews with him on my YouTube channel, and I encourage you to listen to them. And he said in one of the interviews, Gerhard, being a CEO can be so overwhelming that sometimes you want to crawl under your desk.
Now, what stops them from doing it? How did they handle that moment at the time it came? What were the different ways or the commonality of how they handled that uncertainty when those fears
Well,
arose?
get your ego out of the way and think about all the people, the thousands of people that work for you. You're accountable to them. You don't want to disappoint them. You want to help them win. You want to help yourself extricate the company from a difficult spot. And there is no free pass for anybody. Everybody gets into tough spots. And you want to have faith in something greater than you, and not just get your ego invested in those ventures and think, if I fail, everything is going to be, everybody is going to be miserable. That's not the case. That's limited thinking. Think beyond yourself. Think about your noble purpose. Why are you here? Why have you created a company? And what does the company mean to you, to your people, and to your customers?
Right. And not everything they tried or everything you tried worked, right?
Right.
What was the commonality in how they dealt with failure?
That failure is a learning experience. Some people say, turn fear into energy, turn failure into forward momentum. So everybody has their sort of mantra, or maybe their stoic philosophy, where they can reframe failure as an inconvenience and not as a disaster. And Dr. Marty Seligman, talks about how we interpret a situation becomes our emotional climate. And if you want to change your emotional climate, you change the interpretation, change the narrative, change the story.
Sure. I look at failure also as being a stepping stone to the next success if you learn from it and don't let the emotion of the failure bring you down.
Yeah, and become comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that feeling of being uncomfortable is the secret sauce to growth.
Yes. So Gerhard, we're coming to the end of the half hour, believe it or not. If you had to summarize one thing that you want people to walk away with in terms of mindset or anything else that you have relied on in your great career, that's going to give you velocity.
One thing that it's sort of an emergency mechanism when you really feel overwhelmed, because you're a human being and not a human doing. If you're doing too much, create breaks, create pauses, close your eyes. And as you breathe in, you say, I'm aware of my body. And as you exhale, you say, and I'm letting go of all my tensions. So think about, I'm aware of my body, and I'm letting go of all my tensions. It's a wonderful way of calming your mind, calming your body, restoring your confidence. And we all need, in this crazy world, mini breaks. Practice mindfulness, and you're going to feel better, you're going to sleep better, and you're going to be more productive.
And so what we call the mini breaks is the art of the pause, which you just referred to. But what you're saying is it's really critical to pause, because that's going to give you the opportunity to assess whether or not what you're doing is in support of the overall purpose that you're after. And if not, what could you do differently?
Exactly.
Perfect. Gerhard Gschwandtner, it's been such a pleasure to be with you here today. So two things. If you want to know more about Gerhard Gschwandtner and some of the videos he mentioned, Gerhard, please give them the link that they can go to access that information.
Yeah, just Google Gerhard Gschwandtner on YouTube, and you see maybe 600 videos. I have over 2 million views on my YouTube channel. Or go to our company website, sellingpower.com. And if you want to learn about the mindset, go to mindsetscience.com.
Great. And Gerhard also was nice enough to put a testimonial into the book, The Velocity Mindset, which is coming out on May 11th. And we have an offer for you for taking your time and spending your time with us today. If you go to velocitymindset.com now and order your copy through the link on Amazon, and then supply us with your sales receipt, you'll be invited to a invitation only live online training by me on the Velocity Mindset on May 19th. That'll be your gift from us for ordering the Velocity Mindset. For the moment, though, we want to thank you for taking your time to be with us here today.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
When I look Velocity Mind,
yeah, we have a spelling mistake. You see that?
Right.
I caught it. It's mindset.com.
Right.
So that was actually planned on purpose to see if you can catch that mistake. But there is the proper way, the velocitymindset.com. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gerhard. And Gerhard, thank you so much for taking your time and for being a mentor to me too, and a friend, and continued success to you.
Likewise, thank you for your inspiration, Ron. And I suggest everybody should get Ron's book. It's thrilling.
Thank you, Gerhard. And to all of you, thank you for your time. And we wish you all the best for a very successful week and the life that you want to live. Thank you.